For 9 years, I visited a grave that wasn't my father's. I just didn't know it yet. Then, on a slow Tuesday night, a man walked into the diner where I worked, sat down in booth 6, and asked the waitress for coffee and my name. When she pointed across the room at me, he stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor, looked at me like he'd seen a ghost, and said 4 words that split my life into a before and an after. "You have my eyes." I want to tell you what happened after that sentence, because it took me from a kid who thought he knew exactly who he was, to a 17-year-old standing in a lawyer's office holding a DNA report with his hands shaking so hard he couldn't read the numbers. This is that story, and I promise you, every strange twist in it actually happened. My name is Caleb Foster, and until I was 17, I thought my life made sense. I grew up in Ridgeline, a small mountain town in Colorado where everybody either worked at the ski resort in winter or the hardware store the rest of the year. My mom, Diane, raised me. She worked as a dental hygienist, and for most of my childhood it was just the 2 of us in a small blue house on Larkspur Street, except it wasn't always just the 2 of us. When I was 2 years old, my mom married a man named Walter Foster. Walter was a contractor, built decks and additions for half the houses in town, and he was, as far as I knew my entire life, my father. Not my stepfather. My father. Nobody ever told me otherwise, and there was never a reason to ask. He taught me to ride a bike in the church parking lot. He coached my little league team for 2 years. He used to fall asleep in his recliner with the TV on, and I'd cover him with the throw blanket from the couch because he always got cold in the evenings. Walter died when I was 8. A drunk driver crossed the center line on Route 9 during a Tuesday afternoon rainstorm. I remember the exact color of the kitchen tile because that's what I was staring at when my mom knelt down and told me. I remember thinking the tile was ugly, which is a strange thing to remember from the worst day of your childhood, but that's how memory works sometimes. After that, it was just me and my mom again. We visited Walter's grave every year on his birthday and on the anniversary of the accident. I grew up, played baseball until I quit at 15 because I liked photography more, and got a part-time job the summer before junior year at a diner called the Blue Spruce, 3 blocks from the high school. I bussed tables, learned to work the register, and saved up for a used car I never actually bought because I kept spending the money on camera equipment instead. That was my life. Ordinary. Complete as far as I was concerned. I had no reason to think there was a hole in it, because you can't miss a room in a house you don't know exists. It was a Tuesday in late September, one of those slow nights at the diner where you spend more time refilling ketchup bottles than taking orders. I was wiping down the counter when the bell over the door rang and a man walked in alone. He looked to be in his late 30s, tall, with a gray canvas jacket and the kind of tired eyes that made me think he'd been driving a long time. He sat in booth 6, which nobody ever picked because the vinyl seat had a rip in it. And when Marisol, one of the waitresses, went to take his order, he asked her something odd. "Is there a kid who works here named Caleb?" Marisol glanced over at me and pointed. I remember feeling a small prickle of unease, the kind you get when a stranger says your name in a place where strangers shouldn't know it. The man stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor, and he stared at me across the room for what felt like a full minute. I actually looked behind me, thinking maybe there was another Caleb, some coincidence I hadn't considered. There wasn't. He walked over, and up close I noticed his eyes were the same color as mine. A light hazel green my mom always said I got from nobody she knew, which was a joke she made so often I'd stopped hearing it as strange. "You have my eyes," he said. I laughed, a nervous, confused laugh, and said something like, "I think you have the wrong guy." He shook his head slowly. "Your name is Caleb Foster. Your mother is Diane. You were born in November, 17 years ago, in Denver." He said it carefully, like he'd rehearsed it, like he was afraid that if he didn't get it exactly right, I'd walk away. I didn't walk away. I should have, probably. Instead, I stood there with a dish rag in my hand while my stomach dropped through the floor. "How do you know that?" I said. It wasn't really a question. Came out flat. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, set it on the counter without saying anything else, and told me he'd wait outside if I wanted to talk when my shift ended. Then he left. I picked up the card. It read Marcus Bellamy, and underneath a phone number, nothing else. No job title. No explanation. I put it in my apron pocket and finished my shift on autopilot, dropping a plate of pancakes on the floor 20 minutes later because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. He was still there when I got off at 9, leaning against a gray pickup truck in the parking lot, hands in his jacket pockets like he was trying to look smaller than he was. I almost got in my car and drove away. Instead, I walked over because I needed to hear him say whatever he'd come to say, even if I didn't believe it. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said first, which is usually what people say right before they cause trouble. "My name is Marcus Bellamy. 17 years ago, I was seeing a woman named Diane Whitfield in Denver. We were together almost a year. I moved to Portland for a job in the spring, and about 6 weeks later, I remember staring at him, waiting for the part where this had anything to do with me. I found out 3 months ago that she had a baby that November," he said. "A boy." I did the math about 40 different ways, hoping I was wrong. I wasn't. "My dad's name was Walter Foster," I said, and my voice cracked in the middle of it in a way that embarrassed me. "He died when I was 8. He's buried at Ridgeline Memorial. I go there every year." Marcus's face didn't change the way I expected. He didn't look smug or triumphant. He looked almost sorry for me. "I'm not saying Walter Foster wasn't your father in every way that mattered day to day," he said quietly. "I'm saying I think I'm your biological father, and I have been looking for you or for the possibility of you for a long time. I'm not asking you to believe me tonight. I'm asking you to ask your mother." I told him to leave. I told him I didn't know what kind of scam this was, but I wasn't interested. He didn't argue. He just nodded, said he understood, and told me he'd be at the motel off Route 9 for a few more days if I changed my mind. Then he got in his truck and drove off, and I sat in my car in that empty parking lot for 20 minutes before I could make myself turn the key. That night, I did what I imagine anyone my age would do. I sat on my bed with my laptop and searched his name, half expecting to find a mugshot or a string of warnings from other families he'd supposedly duped. What I found instead was almost disappointingly normal. A LinkedIn profile for a Marcus Bellamy, logistics coordinator, based out of Portland for the last several years. A handful of old photos on a cousin's public page, tagged from a barbecue 2 summers back. Nothing that screamed con artist. Nothing that I texted my friend Dion around midnight because I needed to say it out loud to someone who wasn't involved. "Some guy came into the diner and said he's my real dad," I typed. He didn't respond for almost 10 minutes, and when he did, all he sent back was, "Wait, what?" It didn't help me sleep, but it made the whole thing feel slightly less like something I'd imagined. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying his face, the careful way he'd said my birthday, the eyes. When I got home the next afternoon, my mom was in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to the radio like it was any other Wednesday, and something about that made me angrier than I expected. "Do you know someone named Marcus Bellamy?" I asked. The wooden spoon in her hand stopped moving. She didn't turn around right away, and that half-second of stillness told me more than anything Marcus had said the night before. "Where did you hear that name?" she said, finally facing me. Her voice had gone thin. "He came to the diner. He says he's my biological father." I watched her face for any sign this was absurd, that she'd laugh and tell me some stranger was confused. She didn't laugh. She sat down at the kitchen table like her legs had stopped working and put both hands over her mouth. "Mom, I need you to sit down," she said. "I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me it's not true." She was quiet for a long time, long enough that I actually started to hope, and then she said the sentence that ended the hoping. "Walter isn't your biological father, Caleb. I always meant to tell you when you were older. I just never found the right time, and then Walter died, and I couldn't bring myself to take him away from you twice." I don't remember exactly what I said after that. I remember leaving the kitchen and driving around town for 2 hours with no destination, passing the diner, passing the motel off Route 9 where I didn't stop, passing the cemetery where I definitely didn't, because I didn't know yet whose grave I'd even be visiting anymore. I went back to the house late that night after my mom had gone to bed, and I did something I'd never done before. I went into the hall closet where she kept a cardboard box labeled old papers, the kind of box every parent has and every kid ignores. I found my birth certificate first. Father Marcus Bellamy. I genuinely never looked at my own birth certificate before in my life, which sounds impossible, but why would I have? Underneath it was an adoption certificate dated when I was 2 years old. The paperwork Walter had filed to legally adopt me after he married my mom. I sat on the closet floor holding both documents, feeling like the ground had actually tilted under the house. There was more. A photograph of my mom, maybe 20 years old, standing on a beach next to a man who wasn't Walter, laughing at something outside the frame. I turned it over. Someone had written Marcus and Diane, Cannon Beach in faded pencil. And near the bottom of the box, a letter, still sealed, addressed to Marcus Bellamy at a Portland address, with a red stamp across the front that read Return to Sender. Moved. No forwarding address. She tried to reach him. At some point, she had actually tried, and it hadn't worked, and I didn't know yet what that meant for how angry I was allowed to be. I sat on that closet floor until almost 3 in the morning with those 3 objects spread out in front of me. A birth certificate, an adoption paper, and a letter that never arrived, and I understood that whatever story I'd grown up believing had a lot more chapters than anyone had ever shown me. My phone buzzed around 3:15, an unknown number with a Denver area code, and my heart nearly stopped. I let it go to voicemail, too rattled to answer. Call me when you can, before hanging up abruptly, like she'd changed her mind about saying more. I hadn't spoken to my grandmother Ruth in almost 2 years. I had no idea yet how she even knew anything was happening, and the not knowing kept me awake for another hour, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many people had known this secret while I was the only one who hadn't. I called the number on the business card 2 days later. My mom didn't try to stop me, though I could tell it cost her something to stay quiet about it. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral ground, my choice. Marcus was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 coffees, like he'd guessed what I'd order and gotten it right. "Thank you for calling," he said. He looked nervous in a way he hadn't in the parking lot, like the version of him that had rehearsed his opening lines had run out of script. "I found the letter," I told him. "The one that came back." Something in his shoulders loosened, like that single fact had answered a question he'd been carrying for 17 years. "She tried to tell me," he said, mostly to himself. He told me his side slowly, like he was handing me something fragile. He and my mom had met at a community college in Denver, in an evening photography class, of all things, which is a detail I still can't quite get over given how much I love photography myself. They dated almost a year. He got a job offer in Portland that he couldn't turn down, a real chance at a career after years of scraping by, and the plan had been for my mom to consider moving out there once he got settled. "Things got complicated fast," he said. "I moved, and about 6 weeks later she just stopped calling me back. I thought she'd changed her mind about us. I was hurt, honestly, and a little proud, so I didn't chase it as hard as maybe I should have. I moved twice more over the next year for work. I never got a letter that said she was pregnant, because by the time she sent it, I wasn't at that address anymore." "So you never knew?" I said. "I never knew," he said. 3 months ago, I ran into an old friend from Denver at a wedding, and she mentioned, just in passing, that Diane Whitfield had a baby the same winter I moved. She didn't mean anything by it. It just lodged in my head and wouldn't leave. I hired someone to help me find out for sure. That's how I found this town. That's how I found you. Over the next 2 weeks, I kept meeting Marcus, sometimes at the coffee shop, once at the little park behind the library. Each conversation peeled back another layer I hadn't known was there. He told me my mother's parents, my grandparents, had never liked him much. Her father, a strict man named Harold Whitfield, thought Marcus was unstable, always chasing the next job in the next city. No roots, no plan. When my mom got pregnant and Marcus was unreachable, her parents apparently told her it was for the best, that a man who couldn't be found when it mattered wasn't a man worth chasing. "I'm not telling you this to make your grandfather sound like a villain," Marcus said carefully. He was trying to protect his daughter. I understand that now more than I did at 23. What unsettled me more was learning that my mom hadn't only sent 1 letter. According to her, she tried calling the last number she had for him 3 separate times in those first uncertain weeks of her pregnancy, before giving up when the number was disconnected. I hadn't known any of that when I stormed out of the kitchen. It didn't erase the anger, but it complicated it, and complicated anger is a strange, exhausting thing to carry around at 17. The stories didn't always line up cleanly either, and that inconsistency became its own kind of torment. My mom remembered mailing the letter in late August, to the only address she had, the one from his first few weeks in Portland. Marcus was certain he'd already moved into a different apartment across town by then, chasing a shorter commute, which meant the letter never had a chance of reaching him even though the timing, on paper, seemed close enough that it should have worked. It was the kind of near miss that made both of them go quiet whenever they talked about it, unless the dates in both their memories had simply worn smooth over 17 years the way memories do. Grandpa Harold, when I finally worked up the nerve to ask him directly, insisted he'd never told my mother to stop trying to reach Marcus, only that he'd said, "The man clearly isn't chasing you the way he should be." A comment my mom had apparently carried for 2 decades as something closer to an order than the offhand remark he claimed it was. Nobody was lying, exactly. Everybody just remembered the same handful of weeks through a slightly different window, and I was the one left trying to reconcile 4 different versions of a single summer I hadn't even been alive for yet. My grandmother on my mom's side, Ruth Whitfield, drove up from Denver the following weekend once my mom told her what was happening. I hadn't seen Grandma Ruth in almost 2 years, and she looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow, sitting at our kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she never drank. "I told your mother it was the right decision," she admitted to me, which surprised me, because I expected her to defend herself, not confess. "I thought I was protecting her. I've thought about that decision more times than you can imagine, Caleb, especially every year on your birthday." That same week, Walter's mother, my Grandma Pearl, who I still saw a few times a year even after Walter died, called and asked if she could come by. She arrived with a small cardboard box of her own, things of Walter's she'd kept in her attic since he died. She didn't say much when she handed it to me. She just said, "I think it's time you had these," and squeezed my hand. I didn't open the box that day. I wasn't ready. I put it on my dresser and looked at it every night for a week before I found the nerve. The real confrontation, the one that had been building since that Wednesday in the kitchen, finally happened about 3 weeks after Marcus first walked into the diner. I came home from Grandma Ruth's visit and just let it all out. "Why didn't you tell me the truth after Walter died?" I asked. "You had years. You had so many chances." "Because I was scared," my mom said, and she wasn't holding back the tears anymore, wasn't trying to keep her voice steady for my sake. "I was 20 years old, alone, pregnant, and the man I loved had vanished. Then Walter came into our lives and loved you like you were his from the very first day, and I was terrified that telling you the truth would make you look at him differently, or make you go looking for a man who might not even want to be found. And then he died, and I couldn't stand the thought of taking away a second father from you in the same breath I'd be giving you a stranger. That wasn't your choice to make for me," I said. "You're right," she said. "It wasn't. I know that now. I knew it then too, honestly. I just kept telling myself there'd be a better time. And there never was, because there's no good time to tell your son a lie has been sitting under his whole life. Did you ever love him? Marcus, I asked her, because I realized I'd never actually asked that. "More than I've loved almost anyone," she said quietly, like the admission cost her something in front of me. "That's part of why it hurt so much when he seemed to disappear. And it's part of why I never wanted to open that door again once Walter and I built something steady. I was protecting myself as much as I was protecting you, Caleb, and I'm not proud of that. You could have just told me the truth years ago and let me decide how to feel about it." "I know," she said. "I keep thinking about all the birthdays I could have told you. 8 was too soon right after Walter. 12 felt too young still. 15, I told myself I'd wait until you graduated so it wouldn't derail anything. There was always a reason, and none of the reasons were really about you. They were about how afraid I was. I didn't forgive her that night. I want to be honest about that because these stories always seem to skip that part, like forgiveness arrives on schedule. Didn't. I went to my room and didn't speak to her for 4 days, which, in a house with 2 people in it, feels like a very long silence. She left a plate of food outside my door each night without knocking, and I ate every bite of it, which was its own quiet, wordless conversation neither of us mentioned afterward. Even after everything, some small stubborn part of me needed proof that couldn't be argued with. Marcus suggested it himself, actually, before I could bring it up. "I don't want you to spend the rest of your life wondering if I made this up somehow," he said. "Let's do the test. I want the proof as much as you do." We went together to a clinic 2 towns over, swabbed our cheeks in a small white room while a technician who did this every day for a living treated it like completely normal Tuesday business, which felt strange given that my entire identity was sitting in that plastic tube. The results took 11 days. I checked the mail every afternoon like a man waiting on a verdict, which, in a way, I was. When the envelope finally came, Marcus drove up so we could open it together, sitting on the tailgate of his truck in our driveway. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I read the number 4 times. Marcus didn't say anything. He just put his hand on the back of my neck. The kind of gesture I imagine fathers do without thinking, and I felt something in my chest crack open that I hadn't realized was still sealed shut. With the DNA test settled, the last real mystery was the timeline itself, and Marcus and I spent a long evening at his motel room piecing it together like 2 people assembling a puzzle from 2 different boxes. He told me about the years after Portland, a marriage a few years after Portland that ended in divorce, a lot of long silences he now recognized as grief for a life he didn't fully understand he'd lost, though he stayed careful that night about which parts of that chapter he was ready to tell me and which parts he wasn't quite ready to say out loud yet. He told me the wedding conversation that started it all, how the friend hadn't even remembered the exact month, just sometime that winter, and how he'd spent 3 sleepless nights doing math on a napkin before he could bring himself to hire the investigator. I told him about Walter, the recliner, the throw blanket, the way he used to whistle off-key while he worked in the garage. Marcus listened to every bit of it without flinching, and at one point he said something I didn't expect. "I'm glad you had him," he said. "I mean that. I wish I'd known about you 17 years ago, but I'm not going to pretend I could have given you what he gave you. I was 23 years old and moving city to city chasing a paycheck. You got lucky with Walter Foster, and I'm grateful for that, even though it also breaks something in me to say it. That was the night I stopped thinking of him as a threat to my memory of Walter, and started thinking of him as something else entirely, a second true thing that could exist alongside the first one instead of replacing it. Once the fear and the proving were behind us, something quieter and better started growing. Marcus decided to stay in Ridgeline longer than his original few days, renting a small apartment above the hardware store instead of the motel. We started doing ordinary things together, the kind that don't sound like much until you realize you've never had them with this particular person before. He taught me how to change my own oil in the gravel lot behind his building. We went fishing twice at the reservoir outside town, catching almost nothing both times, which he said was the most honest kind of fishing there was. He came to the diner on my shifts sometimes and sat in booth 6 again, tipping generously and reading a paperback so he wouldn't hover. My mom and Marcus finally spoke directly, 17 years of silence collapsing into one long, careful conversation at our kitchen table, while I sat upstairs pretending to do homework and listening to the low murmur of their voices through the floor vent. I don't know everything they said. I know my mom apologized. I know Marcus told her he understood more than he had 3 months earlier. I know neither of them raised their voice, which felt, after everything, like its own small miracle. The box from Grandma Pearl was still sitting on my dresser when I finally opened it, about a month after Marcus arrived. Inside were mostly small things: Walter's old pocket knife, a stack of photographs, his reading glasses. Near the bottom, folded into thirds, was a letter in Walter's handwriting, dated a few weeks before he married my mother, addressed to her. I shouldn't have read it. I told myself that even as I was reading it. "Diane," it began, "I know he isn't mine by blood, and I need you to hear me say clearly that I don't care. I've thought about this more than you probably realize, lying awake some nights turning it over. I want to be his father, not his mother's husband who happens to also live in the house. If we do this, I don't ever want Caleb to feel like a piece of unfinished business." I sat on my bedroom floor holding that letter for a long time. Walter had known from the very beginning. It hadn't only been my mother's decision to let me believe he was my biological father. It had been Walter's request, his choice, made out of something that looked, in his handwriting, a lot like love, not deception. It complicated my grief in a way I hadn't expected. I wasn't only mourning a father who died. I was also re-meeting the man I thought I already knew completely, discovering he'd made a quiet, deliberate decision to love me as fully as any biological father could, and had simply never told me it was a decision at all. Just when things had started to feel almost settled, Marcus told me something else, sitting across from me at the coffee shop with an expression like he was bracing for impact. "I have a daughter," he said, "from my marriage. Her name is Nora. She's 14. She lives with her mother in Portland, and I have partial custody. I should have told you sooner, and I'm sorry I didn't." I felt something twist in my chest, a strange, ugly jealousy I wasn't proud of. The sense that this whole time I'd been imagining Marcus as a man whose life had a Caleb-shaped hole in it, when really his life had just gone on with another kid, another home 3 states away. That same week, my mom found out Marcus had been at the house twice while she was at work, teaching me things Walter used to teach me, and something in her cracked that I hadn't seen coming. "You're letting him take Walter's place in this house like it's nothing," she said, standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed so tight it looked like she was holding herself together physically. "Nobody's taking anybody's place," I said. "Why does it have to be one or the other with you?" "Because I watched Walter earn every single one of those moments with you, Caleb. The bike, the little league, all of it. And now this man shows up 17 years later and gets to just walk into the garage like he's always belonged there." "He's my father too," I said, and I could hear how much that sentence cost both of us the second it left my mouth. "You don't get to be the only one who decides what that word means anymore. You lost that right when you decided I didn't get a say for 17 years. It was the ugliest fight we'd ever had, both of us saying things designed to hurt rather than explain, and I ended up sleeping at Dion's house for 2 nights afterward, needing distance from all of it, from my mother, from Marcus, from a half-sister I hadn't even met yet who apparently already existed somewhere in my life without my knowledge. Dion's mom made me pancakes both mornings and didn't ask a single question, which I appreciated more than I could have explained to her at the time. It took about 2 weeks of quiet, mostly me sitting alone in my room with my camera, sorting through old photographs, before I could see the whole picture clearly instead of in these separate, colliding pieces. I went back to my mom first. I told her I understood, not completely, not without any anger left, but enough. I told her that being 20 and scared and alone was a real thing, not an excuse but a real thing, and that Walter choosing me hadn't been diminished by the fact that it had been a choice at all. If anything, it meant more, not less. She cried when I said that, and for the first time since Marcus walked into the diner, she hugged me like the ground under both of us had finally stopped shifting. Then I called Marcus and asked to meet Nora. We video called first, awkward and giggly in the way 2 teenagers meeting a stranger who happens to share their blood tend to be, and a month later Marcus drove her up for a weekend. She had his same tired, careful eyes, and within an hour of meeting her I understood something I don't think I could have explained to anyone a year earlier. Family isn't a fixed shape you're born into. Sometimes it's a shape that keeps rearranging itself around you, and your job isn't to protect the old shape from changing, it's to make room. On what would have been Walter's birthday that year, I went to the cemetery the way I had every year since I was 8, except this time Marcus came with me and waited by the truck instead of walking up to the grave, giving me space without making it feel like abandonment. I stood there and told Walter about all of it, out loud, the way you do at grave sites even though you know it's really just for yourself. I told him I'd read his letter. I told him it hadn't changed anything about how much I loved him. It had only shown me how deliberately he'd chosen to love me back. I'm 17 years old, and somewhere in the last few months I went from having one father who died too young, to having 2 fathers, one who chose me without ever mentioning it was a choice, and one who lost 17 years he can never get back, and who searched for me the second he learned I existed, and never once slowed down until he found me. I used to think family meant the story you were told. Now I know it means the truth you're brave enough to go looking for, even when it's easier to leave the box in the closet unopened. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry at my mother, and the honest answer is that I was, for a long time, and some days a small piece of that anger still surfaces, usually late at night when I can't sleep. But anger, I've learned, isn't the opposite of love. It's just love that hasn't finished processing everything yet. My mom made a decision at 20 years old that she spent the rest of her life quietly regretting and trying to make right in small, imperfect ways. Walter made a decision out of love that he never got the chance to fully explain before he died. And Marcus lost 17 years he never even knew he was missing. And the moment a stranger's offhand comment at a wedding cracked it open. He didn't waste a single day going after the truth. I think about that a lot now, how close the truth came to never surfacing at all, how it hinged on one overheard sentence, one letter that came back undelivered, one box in a closet nobody opened for 17 years. If you're someone sitting on a secret like that, thinking there's never a right time to tell it, I hope this story tells you what mine taught me. There's no perfect time. There's only the version of the truth that comes out on its own timeline, whether you're ready for it or not, and the people who love you are usually stronger than you think, even when it takes them a while to prove it. I still work at the Blue Spruce. Booth 6 is my favorite table to bus now, which still makes me smile every time I wipe it down. Some mornings Marcus is in it, reading his paperback, waiting for nothing in particular except the chance to be nearby. And some evenings I still stop at the cemetery on my way home, not out of obligation anymore, but because I finally understand that I'm not choosing between two fathers. I never was. I just needed time to learn how to hold both of them at once.